Hey guys, Ken here from Crosshair Games X, bringing you a little tiny look at the little tiny mouse, the HK Gaming Mira S Ultra Rose Quartz. And this one is the smaller variant, the bigger one being the M, which is basically a G Pro wireless shape clone. So any of you G Pro wireless fans, mine's a little beat up, as you can see right here from just use. I need to get a new one. The Mira S is basically a G Pro wireless mini. But it has a lot more protrusion here on the side buttons, and I really like it. They sound really good, really nice and stiff. There's a little pre-travel, but it's super stiff, so you don't really got to worry about it being too mushy. At least on my copy, it's great. No quality control issues. This thing is probably the best ultralight mouse build-wise on the market right now. It's solid. This thing's solid. You could squeeze as much as you want. The only creaking is the coming down at the point where you're probably going to break it. So this thing is nice and sturdy. Probably one of the best ultralight mice I've ever felt. It is, though, because of this, as heavy as my G-Wolf Skoll. Let me see if I could dig that thing out. It is definitely not as light as an MM710 or MM720. Here it is. So the Skoll here, as you can see, is a lot bigger. And it is ergo. It's basically a clone of the Zowie EC shape. That is one of my favorite mouse right now, and this thing is a lot smaller, and this is in the G Pro shape. I'd say my favorite scroll wheel in the market is the G-Wolf Skoll one, despite how good the one on the Mira S is. This thing just feels super tactile and really addicting. Just, move up and down like that. I just love it. It's super light, not a lot of friction on it. I use this thing a lot. But yeah, G-Wolf Skoll, this thing is still about as heavy, if not heavier, than the G-Wolf Skoll, despite the small size, and that's because you can see the supports in there are different. They're larger, thicker. Overall, it is just as heavy, if not a tiny bit heavier than the G-Wolf's Skoll. So this was kind of like my go at an ultralight or a super light mouse, but in the G Pro kind of ambidextrous style. I don't really like ultralight mice. I don't know, it's not the holes or anything, it's just I always play with heavy mice outside of the Skoll, and that obviously is because I love the Zowie shape for EC, and getting an ultralight of my favorite shape of all time was a no-brainer, so I went for that. And the only other ultralight mice I have are basically the MM710, which I've given away to friends. Wasn't a big fan of it. My hands are huge. They're around 20 centimeters from bottom of my palm to my tip of my middle finger, so they're really large, especially for my height at almost 6 feet tall. So yeah, I have a lot of Zowie ECs, and having another EC was fine. I like the G Pro, and I've gotten a little more used to the G Pro wireless in recent days yet again. It's just, for my hand, a larger G Pro wireless would have probably, for my fingertip grip, been a little harder to use. I'm a fingertip gripper. I use the Skoll like this, and I use the Mira S like this. My hands are quite large. But as people like to say, you gotta try out smaller, lighter mice if you want more accuracy, and they couldn't be more right about that. As you can see, I put the extra mouse skates. This one's supposed to be here, and this one's supposed to be on the bottom, but I switched them over because I found that not having a mouse skate around the sensor was actually really detrimental. So I need to buy an extra hyperglide or something, maybe a hyperglide for all of them, and add the mouse skate for the sensor. As you can see on the bottom of the G Pro wireless, this is probably what I'll have to add. Anyway, this thing is awesome. It's not super light. It's around 60 grams, I'd say. In fact, it's probably the same weight as the G Pro wireless. just handing it right now. But the thing that stands out with this, outside of the way better cord, even the Skoll, the cord for the Skoll is not as good as this one. This one's awesome. It matches the mouse. I'm in love with the rose quartz, by the way. And I guess let's give you a sound test. This is one of the best parts of the mouse right here, is just the clear quality, the sheer quality of the clicks and the buttons. There's a little bit of pre-travel again on the rear button, but these are super stiff, so you're not going to get too much. So they're really good. And again, this is one of the best, if not the best in most people's opinions, that really like the scroll wheel. My favorite's the Skoll, just because of the rubberized texture and the lack of RGB on it, and the really tactile feel. This one is not as tactile. It's super smooth, but it's still nice and high quality feeling and stiff, and there's some good weight to it, despite having not a lot of tactility. So let's start with the buttons here. So you can see that pre-travel a little, but I mean, rarely do I use the rear button, but that front button sounds nice and crisp. Let's start with the scroll wheel up here. Beautiful. Nice and quiet. You could almost not even hear it, despite having very clear steps. It's not as tactile, again, as the Skolls or the G Pro Wireless. There's a lot, it feels like there are a lot more steps on here, but really good high quality rubber. Nice and quiet click here. Let's try this DPI button. Nice and quiet, super high quality feeling. Again, right click. Sounds really good. It's almost like the Titans from the Rocket Ammo series. And the point of pride here are the left and right mouse buttons. Nice and loud, nice, high quality, crisp. There's not a lot of pre-travel, as you can see. I'm clicking it. That is about as much pre-travel as you can get, so not a lot. It's a tiny bit different with the right mouse button, but again, I'm still accidentally clicking it while trying to demonstrate pre-travel. So very high quality left and right mouse buttons. I've had no issues with this. The mouse button line right here that separates the body from the mouse left and right is a lot more different from the G Pro Wireless. As you can see, the mouse buttons are kind of seated in there, when the mouse buttons on this thing are actually separate from the body, which I prefer, because the G Pro Wireless body does go down here, it continues from the back down here rather than having these separate parts. But otherwise, my main mouse for now actually feels really good. It's nice and small. G Pro Wireless was a tiny bit too big for me anyway as a fingertip gripper. This mouse is shining. It comes with extra mouse feet. It comes with these feet too. It comes with some grip for you. Some grips. You can put it on the sides, on the buttons. So yeah, you get a lot of bang for the buck. Maybe not as much as a Skoll. It does feel a bit sturdier than the Skoll, even though the Skoll is quite sturdy. There is some creakage on the Skoll, but I never squeezed the mouse hard enough. See, the issue with the Skoll as well is the lack of a skate around the sensor. And the thing about that is that you cannot put one there, unlike you can with the Mira S. So the Skoll's sides and center tend to scrape on the bottom because the bottom is still ultralight. You want something like this to not be ultralight on the bottom, at least, so you have a little bit more support, so that you're not pressing down too hard on it and causing the bottom to scrape. That is my biggest concern with this mouse, so I have to put as little weight as possible on this for this thing to glide like the Mira S or the G Pro Wireless does. So yeah, I mean, the buttons on the Skoll are a little more mushy even than the Mira, so, but these two remain my favorite mice I am using right now. If I'm in the mood for an ergo shape, I go for the Skoll. If I'm in the mood for a G Pro wireless shape that's ambidextrous, just without the buttons here, I go for the Mira S. So yeah, great little mouse. I love this thing. It's awesome.